Content warning here. I wanted to be a little startling, so I chose a metaphor that was brought to me by someone who was on the after show the first time I was on Hidden Existence. It may be a little graphic, and some of you who are more sensitive may find it a little offensive. That's not the intent, but the intent is to provide just a little bit of shock. If you end up with a slightly thicker skin for it, that can't really be a bad thing. Knowledge is a journey, but there's no place you can go to get there. The journey may be short, it may be long. It may take a moment or a lifetime to find mastery of a given topic. Each of us has a great depth of knowledge in some places, yet shallow familiarity in others. Look at the person. We only see the surface. We cannot perceive the depth. Some professions require quite a broad knowledge base, but often do not require the entire pool of knowledge to be very deep. The phrase "a mile wide and an inch deep" has been used to express this. Yet, looking at the person, we cannot perceive either the breadth nor the depth of knowledge from there. I undoubtedly know things that many do not even realize are things. And the same is true for many of you, listening or watching to this stream. I do not even know some of the things that you know are even things. How can someone evaluate the depth of something they are told by another? How can we tell it has value? We must be familiar with the concept of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Those who must acquire a broad knowledge base for their profession feel no shame in being unfamiliar with some new subject. The repeated exposure to new ideas over time allowed them to step freely to the point of realizing they know little or nothing, and has also given them the framework to ask questions so that they can acquire knowledge about it. They know there is no place you can go to get there, but they have nevertheless taken the journey many times. They know how to find the path. Each is different, of course, and there are sometimes hidden rooms and occasionally even traps along the way. We must master them ourselves. When someone knows something by either education or experience, and we lack the framework to understand that idea, there is no scaffolding available for us to build our knowledge base. There is no way for them to take a picture and teleport our brains to their level of mastery and knowledge. They can guide us to the path, they can lead us along the trail, but we have to take the journey ourselves to master the knowledge required. This is the problem with the Dunning-Kruger effect. It takes essentially the same knowledge to realize you still have questions as it does to achieve that level of mastery of the subject in the first place. But we can draw upon other elements of the baloney detection kit, however, and try to assess if the person presenting the idea is, in fact, a master of the knowledge they present. If we can trust to some extent they are, in fact, well versed in their subject, then we can trust to the same extent that they are presenting valuable information. We can always discover later that there are gaps or flaws in the knowledge they imparted to us. We may find the gaps came from the source. We will often discover those gaps came from our own unfamiliarity with the topic, that we did not know what we didn't know, that we still have more questions. We can always find excuses, of course, for bad behavior. We can always find excuses to ignore people. A popular excuse you may have heard from people is, "They are so arrogant. They think they know everything." To that, however, I ask you the question, who is more arrogant? The one who tries to teach, or the one who ignores the offered lesson out of jealousy or pride? Why do academics speak openly about what other academics are saying? Why don't they melt like snowflakes at having their ideas torn at by strangers? let's explore how it is they can survive serious questioning. When in science or philosophy a person proposes an idea, those around who have an interest in the thought will participate in the open discourse about the idea. They examine its strengths and weaknesses. They pick at both and openly try to break the idea. The originator of the idea need not be present to defend it, but they do often participate in that discourse. This is no place for the snowflakes of social media. It is true that the first time this is done, those who are sensitive to criticism will indeed take the process personally to some extent. The exercise is repeated, just as with physical exercise, to strengthen the mind and the spirit and the body to the process. In the end, every participant realizes that most of those participating want all to be successful in their ideas. The rending of weak ideas is not done to harm them. It's done to protect them from the consequences of the bad idea by examining all the places the bad idea may take them, or others. In any version of the baloney detection kit, there is a step that instructs you to question your own ideas most vigorously, for if you do not, others surely will. In social media, many prefer this to be done in secret, out of sight, behind people's backs, all to protect the sensitive from the idea that, well, there may be flaws to their thinking. But which process is better for everyone involved? What should one do when a person presents something they truly believe will bring value to the discussion, yet because of actual knowledge and experience we realize they are dead wrong? In a healthy academic setting, we question the thing immediately and openly, whether the originator is present or not. For us, after all, the originator is the one who told us the idea in the first place. They might not be the one who invented the idea, but they brought the idea to us for discussion. For the uninitiated, being wrong is embarrassing and humiliating. For the socially adapted, it is the first thing that happens after waking up. Yet, in the snowfields of social media, making an open statement does nothing more than reveal to the crowd that you are not the right kind of pod person, and the landscape suddenly melts with the snowflakes, and the war is begun before you finish your breath. How healthy does that seem to you? If I see a friend making a presentation I know is utter nonsense, am I really just to bite my lip and quietly pull them aside for quiet break? Well, then the presentation mysteriously stops. For some reason, nobody who is listening is likely to understand. There's been a cover-up. So-and-so has been silenced. What if I see a friend listening to such a presentation? Do I get my friend's attention and help them see the problem and just leave the rest of the crowd to their own demise? Well, sure, I've helped my friend, but I have still left all of the others to wallow in the utter nonsense. One problem, and there are innumerable problems here, is that once the snowflakes are melting and the war has begun, the polarization will force people to believe they need to take sides. It is not very deep thinking, but that is how social media works. Remembering the vulnerabilities of our brains, once we become polarized to an idea, we step beyond reason, and we become unreasonable. Once you decide, you entrench the decision to reinforce your own thinking, regardless of whether it is the better choice. If the problem is resolved in secret, then few will ever really learn from the resolution. The other option is that people who recognize the nonsense just keep it quiet among themselves. This leads to cliques and elitism, which lead to all sorts of other problems. Nobody learns anything from secrecy. It's not a positive thing. Certainly, there are trolls who delight in breaking people and baiting people into conflict. Just as a thief sees all other people to be thieves, snowflakes are whiners in disguise, and they see everyone else as haters. They wait for the chance to melt and show their true inner whiner. They're also haters. The world of social media is a mile wide and an inch deep, but there are fathomless pools of darkness that truly represent significant problems reflected in the real-life society we share. In some ways it is akin to a minefield, but in more ways it is something that will stick to your boots, get into the cracks, and stain everything it touches. Even in the fractious social media community of Bigfoot, there are problems much bigger than Sasquatch. The fractiousness and bitterness is only one symptom of the many problems. There is a disturbance in the force coming. I know of it, and have little involvement with it. None at all in its production. Very little influence with any that are directly involved with it. Yet it lurks in the near future of the social media community surrounding Bigfoot. We all know the community has issues, hence its fractiousness. Some of those issues are serious and involve not merely delusional problems, but a rampant mass psychosis undermining not just the community, not just those in social media, but our society in general. When you feel the urge to take sides over this, or over anything else, consider what you have thought in the past of those who are saying it. If you feel betrayed in some way, ask yourself why this is. If you feel betrayed, then you trusted the one you feel betrayed by at one point. Perhaps you were wrong before, when you had time to be reasonable and calm. But perhaps you are wrong now in your reaction. Perhaps they are still that person you trusted, and perhaps what they are saying is as true as ever and more important than ever. Just maybe you are betrayed by something else, and the one who made you aware of it is trying to help you, not betray you. It is well known that a fleet can only travel as fast as its slowest ship. The same is true in any group or community, metaphorically speaking. The same is true of the fractious Bigfoot community. We all know there are problems. We all know there are bad actors, but they are not the only problems. I was a bit stunned to hear one personality from the community say,
One of the worst things that sets us back is this community. It's the toughest obstacles, aren't rivers and mountains and terrain, but it's the cesspool of bad actors of social media. And you've got to contend with their opinions, their egos, their envy, their ugliness. It's a wolf pack mentality. And that's something that really bothers me, because I don't care what level of experience that you are at. You can still learn from someone, and you should be willing to share your knowledge. And so that will help us put these pieces of the puzzle together.
I was really only stunned to hear such objective honesty from someone who has some popularity in the community. So, do we go about hosing out the cages? Whose cages do we start with? Do we stop with Bigfoot, or do we hose out the entire internet? Well, what happens when you take a fire hose and try to hose out a cesspool? It just overflows and spreads everywhere. There's not really any point in trying that kind of approach, because the filth just spreads to contaminate a larger area. I spoke recently in another essay about the idea of lifting others ahead instead of kicking them down. Yet a problem remains that one way to try and lift people ahead, by exposing the nonsense in what they promote, is perceived as an attack and incites little wars that traumatize even more people. So we cannot lift people from the filth and expect them to be grateful for the effort. In fact, we can truly expect them to hiss and spit and crawl back into the wallow, taking many of their fans and friends with them, and maybe even dragging a few new people down along with them. So what can be done? The only way out from this kind of madness and filth is from near the bottom, for each person who can see a cleaner path to choose to follow it. As with real life, it must be one person at a time, finding their own way out of the minefield. That means all we can do is really step out, hose off our own boots, and move on. Anyone who is interested in cleaning up can follow our path and hose themselves off. In the end, however, we will be leaving behind anyone who wants to be part of the wallow. This seems like the most sad and defeated way to move forward, because it admits that those who do not wish to come along will be left in the madness and filth they prefer. As with all knowledge, where I started this essay, we cannot take them out of the place they are in. We can only try to show that there's a better place they can go to, and hope they will make a better decision for themselves in the future. But be warned, we are only human, and we can occasionally misstep. All of us can. As I said, there is a storm coming, just one of many. Be prepared to navigate through it with reason and confidence. Help is waiting on the other side. Can you grasp more clearly now why academic science will not approach this subject? I am the curious cryptid, and I am not the first to see this place in this way. While I never bought into the depth of the madness, others already among you are cleaning themselves up and have asked me to help them find a path out. You don't know who most of them are. I didn't start it. I was just asked to walk alongside. Only we know who has been approached for this undertaking, but we all stand among you, waiting to help, to make a better place than the one they are stepping out from. We can still reach your grasp if you choose this path for yourself.